Alright, so for this modern style of hard house, which is a bit more trance and hard house kind of coming together essentially, we're at 145 BPM. The first thing we got up here are these two little melodies. So obviously, yeah, this is the part where the trance comes in, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, keeping the door super tight where it's like, if it has melodies, it's trance. If it has, like, chord stabs and UK vocals, it's hard house. Dude, why don't we just blend them all together? I think that's what a lot of these artists that you guys request for me to make tutorials about, it's literally just they were fearless enough to combine trance and hard house. So that's what we're doing here. And the reason I'm showing you these together is listen to how they fit together. Right, obviously there's the Transcape pattern, which will break down how all that's happening. But then what happens is it goes dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, and then when it hits that eighth note in the middle, there's a note on this one. So you get a lot of cool stuff playing together. And I want to show you that because obviously, like, a lot of hard house is the drums and stuff. But when you can have two things come together to create a really cohesive thing like this, you can hear what it really adds to that. So, for the first one, these are both very simple melodies. This one, we're in G sharp minor for this whole track. We're literally just doing root 5, 6, 7, and just playing with that. And then it's on the upbeat, so it's like... Right, pretty simple, a very like vocal kind of melody too. The sound on this one is analog. I got a square wave and a saw wave. They're both an octave up. They both, you see, have this pitch bend into the note, so you're literally hearing like that little like attack on the start of the sound is basically hearing it go wham up to the note, but it's really fast. And they're at separate times, so that creates like a cooler thing. And something that can't just be easily recreated. Low pass filter there, but it's got an envelope. So that's kind of adding to that brassy sort of pluck thing. There's the amp envelope like that. Bit of vibrato, a bit of unison, some reverb, and then we're just side chaining it to the kick. I've got then this one. So this one is very like 2000s, right? What we're doing is, again, the same scale. We're starting on the 5th though. So we're actually going 5, root, 9, 3, 4, 5. Right, so you see we just walk up and then back down basically. You know, if you're looking at scales, it's not that hard to do this, but again, you get these two talking to each other. And then talking to the bass line, and it becomes something very nice and complex. Now, for the sound on this one, it starts like this. It's just a pretty basic synth patch. It's just a square wave and wavetable, basically. And then the Transcape. So the way I've done the Transcape here is using Ableton's shaper. There's a lot of ways you can do this, but this one is very reliable. So what we're doing is we're mapping the shaper to the gain of this utility, so it's just the volume of the sound, and then the shaper is literally doing the Transcape pattern. And then you just have to play around over here, like with the settings. You see I brought the offset down. You can do it even lower. A bit of reverb after, which sounds really nice with the Transcape, and then sidechain. Cool. So then we get these little chord stabs. So yeah, super trancey. I noticed these in a few of the X Club tracks, so I wanted to show you guys how to do it. It's really not that hard. The actual stab sound is more about the rhythm, right? You're basically making these really simple chords between just root and 5. Right? Like the more voices you start to put in, you don't really want that. You kind of want these like cold... just root and 5th, and then what you're doing is you're playing around with like a very, very tight sound. Like if you look at this, it's a saw wave and a square wave going into a low pass filter with an envelope, but the envelope is like really tight. Right, and if you try to make it more open, it doesn't really work. So you gotta put that just really tight like that. A bit of unison, some delay, which does add a nice kind of like feel with that. I really like the faster ones for these kind of sounds. Sidechain, and then a high pass filter. So then we get to some more hard house kind of chord stab stuff. Right, so we're taking these classic chord stabs And we're basically creating a rhythm with them, very similar to when I soloed those two melodies. A lot of what makes these tracks are things that on their own just sound really cool and have a lot of energy, like this. And then you put a drum and bass, not drum and bass, but you put drums and bass grooving behind it, and you kind of get something right. But this really is like its own kind of world, and it's not that hard to do this. It's basically chord stabs that I'm playing, just making sure they're all, you know, in key, and just listening and getting that note right. And then they're just creating a lot of energy by how they're playing. Right? So it's like this one, every bar just bow, and then these little stabs. And then I have this little stab that just pops in on the end every 2 bars. Right? It just gives it a little more punch, a little more like energy. Those are really just being high-passed and side-chained. I really don't like to over-process these. I feel like you get these to use the processing and the kind of like texture that was already there. You don't just use them and then put a bunch of saturation. Because like also that can kind of mess it up. It's better to have it just sort of be what it was intended to be and bring that into your project rather than trying to like essentially bastardize it by kind of making it something else, right? So then we got some vocals, which I think are also very important with these kind of tracks too, and kind of like the way we use them. Right, so it's kind of like this mix of the ambient, you know, more like just hit and then let it sort of ring over your chords and sound cool type of vocals, but also the little rap vocals too. So like this thing, this ambient stuff is really nice, and I think it's very important too. You know, every 4 bars you just get ah, and it's really nice. If we turn that off, it's cool, but it doesn't feel like that main part of the track, you know? And that's not that hard. That really comes down to what you're using, because you can see the effects are very simple. You could either, you know, I like to use samples for this, even though like I could sing these. I think it's cool using these vocal samples, which got all this texture in them. You can hear this one too. Right, and they kind of sound a little funky, and they've got something going on. Reverb, sidechain, high pass, and get them in key as well. Like you can see I've pitched these to make them both fit in the same key. And then it really sets the track up nicely with that, like, just like a reminder every 4 bars. And then the rap vocals, right? It can be a lot of things. Like, this is kind of a more, like, jungle, reggae kind of vocal chop, right? And it's honestly very simple. It's just on the quarter notes. You could have, like, you know, this is where you could play with, like, a lot of those, like, 90s vocals, taking, like, Biggie or Nas or, like, maybe Big L acapellas, or probably something that's, like, less known, right? But, like, that kind of vibe that people do in dance music a lot, where it is, like, the fast rap vocals. I think those are also really important here, without doing it in a corny way. There's definitely a big market of extremely corny hard house music with rap vocals on it. I'm not saying that, but just something cool, something a little swaggy in between every 4 bars, you know, like this. Just to kind of give it a little bit of like oomph, you know? And it's like those stabs too, like you notice, like, you know, it's not that hard to kind of put audio together, but I think what is hard and what people don't realize is like how much needs to be going on. Like, even though it's not a lot of layers, you basically don't go that long without hearing any vocals. Same thing with these stabs. So it's like these things are really in there, constantly going. Processing is really simple. You see, it's mostly sidechain and high pass, maybe a little reverb and delay if you want. Then we move down to the bass line. So this is really our chord progression, right? Because all of those synths that I've shown you, if I play them together, you still don't really get the like chord progression. Right, there's a lot of vibe, there's a lot of flavor there, but when you put it with an actual progression is when you kind of hear how this all works. And that's what the bass line serves to do here. So what we're doing is we're going root, 5, 6, and you kind of get like a nice movement there from 5 to 6 because you can see they're a semitone apart. So it's kind of like a major 7, like melancholic sort of feel. 3, 4. So it sounds complicated. It's really not, though. It's basically like kind of call and response, you know? The root is the call, the 5th is the response. The sixth is another call. And then this third and fourth is the response to that, right? It's really using the musical voices to create call and response. Now, the sound on this one, we got a saw wave and a little bit of a square wave. It's really, really quiet. It's just trying to make this fat, loud, sort of, you don't want it to be too detailed. Just something very juicy with a lot of harmonics like that and full. Low pass filter, and it's got the envelope on it, just making it a bit more plucky. And then sidechain. Really, the bass line is more about just getting the level right and kind of making it fit in the mix musically. Then we got our drums. Now, the drums here are really not that hard. I think studying both Kyle and the X Club tracks, I've noticed that it's not that many layers, but what's there is very loud, and it's just really, this on its own releases a lot of dopamine, right? So it's like, because if you play all these synths, there's really not too much like, right? Like obviously the energy is there, but these drums are really a lot of what you're hearing. And the other thing I want to talk about with that too is the levels. Like if you notice, like you can literally just see it. Like if you look at the meters over here, like let's do it in session view. So all the drum stuff is like this. Let's just make that red for a second. Like you can literally see it. The kick is the thing that's hitting the loudest, and then these are right under it. So you really need to get those drums up too. And it's funny, like you'll notice, like if I actually bring down like the main drums a little too much, all of a sudden you're gonna hear this and say, oh, it's not even like as good of a tune, But then you just get that stuff up the right volume, especially these rave loops. Right, and it all really comes together. So, with the kick, it's this one that I used, which was more like a techno kick. Right, you can hear it had a bass line on it, and I just cut that off. I also tuned it to match with the bass line. Really not too much processing. You're going to see that with all of these drums. It's just turning them up. You can see the really short hi-hat goes hard with this stuff too, like just taking it and making it like just a little, because it has more punch and I think a little bit more groove as well. Plus, you have a little bit of hi-hats already happening here. So see, the open hi-hat is kind of just fortifying that. I've got the clap too. Not just like a normal clap, a little more like mid-rangey and kind of earthy. And then our rave loops. So yeah, these are some that I've made. In this, I wanted to show you, like, you really don't need that many of them. You just got to get them to the right level. Even if you want to turn these up more and more. I've really just high-passed these, though. There's not a whole lot of extra processing to be done. Again, the drums and bass, you really don't want to over-process. I think if you're trying to process it so much, it probably means you just need to go back and get the original sound right. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments. If you want to see more hard house like this, definitely let me know. You can get this full template at the top of the description on my website for just $5, so you can get it and make the best track of your life today. Thanks for the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.